Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here for the daily medicine transmission for June 23rd, 2021. And is your compass calibrated? I sure hope so, because we're going to need it when we come to this full moon tomorrow on the 24th. So welcome back to my subscribers, my viewers, my supporters. It really means so much to me that you're here, either on the live or with the recording whenever it's appropriate and convenient for you to be here. And if you're new here, welcome. It's great to have you here. And whenever you interact with this content by sharing, liking, commenting, and subscribing, it actually does support independent content creators like myself who don't have monetization, don't have buy subscribers or pay for views. It's all organic all the time here at Catalyst Energies, which sometimes is a much slower process, as I've learned from my marketing coach, that totally organic growth takes the time that it takes. And if you want to expedite that process, you do get involved in terms of marketing, in terms of advertising, in terms of artificially boosting, right? That is the antidote, I suppose, to organic growth. And as human beings, of course, we definitely don't have the patience a lot of times to let things grow naturally. But in terms of what we're experiencing now, it would be, some really good advice, I think, to actually allow things to develop organically and to be holding the space for that to happen. So we're going to talk about today's astrology, as we do every day. The moon is in Sagittarius all day, is going to be moving into Capricorn tomorrow for the full moon. And wow, there are so many incredible transits today that we can talk about. And I talked about it briefly. Hold on one second, guys. One day I'll have oh, that's even worse. I'm so sorry. It's the lighting, it just is what it is. You'd think that I would upgrade it by now, but I'm one of those people that will absolutely use something and duct tape that shit together and use it until it's absolutely dead. And as long as it's functional to get the basic idea across, the message across, the work across, I will use it to the bitter end, even if it is not in its fully functioning state. So, this is why I don't have a ring light or a backdrop or any of the other things that would make this video much more professional looking. But it's really the content that matters. So, and I am getting really... There we go. That's so much better. It's just the sun is right in my face and the glare is just too much. So eventually it won't matter because we'll be looking at the charts and we'll be looking at the reading and not looking at my glare. So, but in the meantime, let's just check in here real quick. I hope everybody's doing okay. That Scorpio moon was no joke. And we've talked about it the last couple of days. It is Wednesday here on planet Earth. And so it's been a couple of days with that intense Scorpio moon, and the feels were just so deep and incredible that you just had to let them flow through you. And it's important that we are stabilizing ourselves and we have calibrated our compass. And if not, this is a great opportunity to do it today, because it is that orientation that is going to guide us to our destination, whatever that is, right? Whatever it is that we are going to be moving forward with now that Mercury has stayed direct, we want to make sure that our compass is in fact calibrated correctly, because it can lead us astray if it's not, right? And especially if we're relying solely on that compass because we're in new territory, maybe we don't have an updated map, maybe our sense of direction isn't as great as we'd like it to be. That's the benefit of having a compass and orienting ourselves in the right direction. So this opposition with Venus today to Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, this is going to give us an opportunity, if we haven't taken it already, to make sure that compass is calibrated, right? That's going to be a real source of tension today. Not to mention that the moon in Sagittarius is going to be making all kinds of connections to Saturn, to Chiron. Black moon Lilith is in the mix today, meeting Saturn in a trine, right? Because Black moon Lilith is in Gemini right now. Asteroid Juno is in the mix all around this 13-degree mark, right? And especially in Sagittarius when the moon meets there, because we have to there's a reckoning that this degree of Sagittarius represents. And of course, Juno representing the contractual obligations of our commitments, right? That balancing of a relationship that is necessary for us to move forward. And especially in Sagittarius, when we're talking about Sagittarius, we are talking about the higher mind. We're talking about alchemy, spiritual alchemy, sexual alchemy, all of those types of alchemical practices, however you practice them, they're really represented in terms of action in the Sagittarian archetype. So, but part of alchemy is that the essence, right? The elements that we're bringing together to unify into something new, they have to be pure. They have to be pure. They have to be, we have to go through that process of purging out the impurities. And if there's things left over from an old cycle that have not been rectified, have not been purged, have not even just been acknowledged and looked at, it will impact the next phase and the next cycle. And so Juno is bringing our attention to this today specifically, and has been sitting at this degree now for, a little bit, and will be for the next, I'm sure, couple of days, that it's really about having to come to terms with this and to recognize that if there's any leftover residual karma or baggage from that last cycle, even as we are embarking on something new, it will show itself. And so this is an opportunity to look at those things, to be aware of them. And with Moon in Sagittarius meeting Juno today, at the same time that she is going to trine Chiron, she's going to sextile a retrograde Saturn in Aquarius. These are all mixed together, and Black Moon Lilith as well in opposition to that. There is a lot of shit that's gonna come to the surface if it hasn't already, and we saw that tower yesterday, and thankfully collectively our energy allowed that to shift, and we embracing this tower moment. And Mars in Leo, 8 degrees Leo today is, as we talked about yesterday, the chaos that preludes the new structure, right? It has to be, right? There's an undifferentiation that comes forward before the start of a next cycle again. So and Mars here is really gonna give us the impetus and the action and the stamina really to push that forward, either within us or just in general. And Mars is the warrior. So don't be surprised if we see a lot of that warrior nature coming through and pushing this chaos into the forefront, because it's a necessary part of the process. And I put a quote up on social media today, especially Telegram, and I will quote it again in the Catalyst Facebook group, that it is kind of a necessary development, right? That totalitarianism allows us to see just how, the depths of the quote unquote evil when we get to that point. And without that descent into this totalitarian situation, whether it's in literal form in our governments, if it's expressing itself in our immediate environment, if it's something that is expressing itself in our internal life, it allows us to see the depth of the darkness. And this aspect is not only going to be pushed right to the forefront with this warrior energy today with Mars, but all of this energy with this 13 degree of Sagittarius, the retribution, right? The Sabian symbol is so clear. A widow's past brought to light. So she's standing at the grave, right? She knows that her spouse has passed, but she still has to contend with everything that was part of that cycle before she moves on. And if she doesn't, it will embed itself in the new cycle. And that's how the karma comes back around, because we don't acknowledge and purify the elements that we are going to use to create something new. And so we're going to get a very emotional and personal look at this today, really identifying what aspects we are really obligated to maintain, and if others that we have been committed to are also maintaining their end of the bargain. Juno has no patience really for this. She has this Libra quality because it is about balance and contractual obligation in our commitments, but she also is she's the queen, right? She's the queen of the gods, and she is the Hera, right, the wife of Zeus. And so she tends to act out in her own way when things are out of balance. So that's something to consider as well, that it's not always it's not always exactly the most graceful balance in when we are acting out of seeming betrayal of our commitments, and that sometimes that things happen that we don't like. And that doesn't mean that we don't fulfill our obligation to the larger context. That's something that this retrograde of Juno, asteroid Juno, is really having us, especially collective paradigms. The moon is met the South Node, like I said, trining Chiron. And so this frustration and this inner child wound, and this of things not happening in an immediate way that we know we have the capacity to bring forward is also part of this mix, right? There is just so much, and really Black Moon Lilith in that trine to Saturn today is exceptionally important because it's very deep, and it pulls us down into not only defiance and self-preservation, but it's something deeper than our own emotional landscape and something deeper than our own feelings and intuition. It's connected to the matrix of the planet herself, the divine feminine, and the aspect of, again, this Kali aspect, right? There needs to be a death in order for there to be a birth aspect, and that is just as natural as anything else. And we need the freedom in order to engage with that. And this is embedded, of course, in all of our psyches. Black Moon Lilith is embedded in every human psyche, and she today, also in her retrograde motion, is going to allow us to connect into a part of ourselves where we can be a source of inspiration, not only for ourselves, but for those around us. And it's going to come from a deep place that we didn't even know existed. And it's usually with these tower moments that we get into the core of who we are. And so the calibration part has a lot to do with the Cancer energy, the sun in a trine to Jupiter today, Jupiter retrograde now, the expansion of our consciousness into the past, into the larger context of the collective unconscious, seeing the fragments left behind from previous incarnations, previous cycles, is going to really give us the confidence and the optimism and the advocacy that Jupiter represents, and honestly the good luck and fortune in that trine to the sun as we embark on our journey to the north of ourselves, right? And this is why calibrating the compass is so important, because if it is not calibrated, if it's been compromised in any way by anything else, around us, or our own lack of care in this way, or just not being aware, right? Just not being aware that it's off. If we are not calibrated in that way, we are not really going to have the means to know which direction we're going in the face of having to expand our own inner journey into these past cycles. So there's so much here about cycles. There's so much here about cycles coming to fruition, and also having to let go of and not just let go, but contend with, to acknowledge, to purge out the aspects we don't want to bring with us into the next cycle, and to be very real with ourselves in our relationships and in our commitments and contractual obligations on a mass level, on a collective level of where we belong and what needs to go. And we have to acknowledge that before we can actually allow it to go. And I think this Pluto-Venus opposition today, that's part of a mystic rectangle, is going to allow for this once we know that our compass is calibrated, it will allow for us to kind of hunker down as the storm moves through, whatever it is, and be able to then move forward from there. So let's look at the chart, because it's just really, sometimes it's just really a lot more useful to have a visual here of what's going on. All right, here. So I hope everyone is doing well. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. How about I just do this for now? There we go. Oh, guys. You'd think I'd figured it out by now, and I haven't. All right, here we go. This is today's chart. All right, and since the glare is so crappy right now, I'm just gonna not even bring up my face. You can just listen to my voice. Now, as you can see right here, is in fact this mystic rectangle. It's a little bit more obvious in this chart. As you know, you can see here that we have the rectangle right here, and then we have the Venus-Pluto opposition, and then we have the moon in opposition to not only Black Moon Lilith, and meeting and Antares today as well. So the sting of the Scorpion it's still very much there, isn't it? And we're going to see this reflected in the reading today, that the sting of the Scorpion is still very much there. Remember Scorpio and the sign of Scorpio and its corresponding house, the 8th house, it has to do with our shared resources, right? And there's a lot of different ways this is manifested. But it's something to keep in mind about the resources that we share and the power dynamics that are created as a result of our relationship. So these could be power dynamics. It could be intimacy and trust. It could be business resources that we share as a result of having a business partner. We could, in our domestic relationships, when we share resources with a partner, for instance, or a family situation, being in a marriage, for instance, those shared resources are financial, and they're also energetic as well. And they're also sexual, if that's part of your partnership. And so all of those things, as we got really deep into all of that, when the moon crosses Antares, right, which is in the constellation of Scorpio, in the heart of the Scorpio, there's the sting right there. Now, the opposition to Mercury now going direct, it's still at this still point. It's something to consider that it's still sitting and moving very, very slowly. It's still in the same degree that it's stationed. It hasn't really moved much out of this yet. And so we're just kind of waking up, right? Mentally. And there's a flashpoint here that is at the real center of today that we're going to see in the reading. That is an aha moment. It is the light bulb going off. And it's not going to be until after this full moon that we're really going to start, as our own selves start working really directly with our mental energy, our intellectual acuity and agility, and really problem solving. In the meantime, though, these two oppositions, especially with the moon opposing Mercury retrograde, in Sagittarius, it is the culture and the religion that is kind of an insulator, and a leader, right? It is the leader of our collective values. It's a representation, an abstraction, if you want to think about it. But there is a point where the culture and the religion, the dogma, acts as an insulation, right? It acts as a protective mechanism so that the consciousness that's not ready for direct contact, direct submersion, it acts as a protective mechanism, right, for a young consciousness. And with the moon here, this is where it's in an opposition to Mercury retrograde, or Mercury, sorry. God, it still feels like it's retrograde because it hasn't really started moving yet. It will, that's for sure. We still have these moments right now to get that compass calibrated, to know that it's going to our own personal integrity and our character and our stabilization to who we are is going to be the guide for us on our journey, because once Mercury starts moving, we're going to see it's going to move very swiftly in Gemini. And this opposition with the moon at the same time that we're going to have this opposition with Pluto and Venus, we are emotionally going to either want to protect or be protected, insulated emotionally by the paradigm, the collective value system, the belief systems, right? And it's not really, the thing is that the sting, it just depends on how we have managed the sting of the scorpion and what we're learning from it. Are we able to hold that resonance and not succumb to the poison and actually have it fortify us even more and learn something from it? Or are we going to succumb to it? And that's really going to, I think the rectangle aspect, right? How we have the moon is going to trine Mars at that degree, and how the moon is also in a sextile to Saturn, and how Saturn is in this trine to Black Moon Lilith, and as well. And so, and also Lilith and Mercury being in a loose sextile to Mars as well. So you see that these are all opportunities here to release the tension of these two oppositions. It's time for us to grow up mentally, right? It really is. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. And emotionally, we still want to feel like the culture and our collective value system is going to mediate the experience and protect us. And this opposition, and it's not going to, it's going to be a transient moment. So just keep that in mind, because this opposition between Pluto and Venus is going to be way more powerful and way more destructive in some ways. And Venus will be pulling in and consolidating and really taking responsibility for protecting and nurturing and containing that which is valuable to us and to her. And that goes along different lines, of course, right? Resources, relationships, anything material that is valuable to us is subject to this cathartic resetting, right? This is really what this degree of Cancer represents, because when we are secure and we are protected and we are contained by our the groups and the family structure and that lattice work of familial bonds and our own power, when that is strong, we can handle just about anything. And the catharsis is, in fact, that tower moment that's going to move us forward. But there is wanting to hold on a little bit too much to what Pluto is, in fact, just destroying. And so that's something to consider as well as we move through today. But there's a lot of opportunities here to release this tension, or at the very least, I don't want to say box it in, but it kind of is, right? With this rectangle. And we have this, oh, wow, that's such an interesting, it's such an interesting shape right here. And so, and we'll get to that. So there is the mystic rectangle. And so the trine to Mars today, and the eventual square to, you can see here, the square to Neptune as well, is right at Ras Al Hague, the head of the snake tamer or the snake charmer, Ophiuchus, right? This is where the moon is going to square Neptune today as well. And again, we are feeling optimistic, we're feeling strength, we're feeling contained by the collective paradigm in some ways. Remember, this is the South Node and Antares, so we are letting go of this and letting go of this collective paradigm in order to move to somewhere new. But we still are feeling so connected emotionally to it. And this is where we're going to really, I think, run into some problems. So let's just go down the line here and check it all out one piece at a time, because it's a lot to go through in preparation for this full moon, because the full moon is really going to show us, and it's a culmination point from this new moon that was a solar eclipse, right? There is this culmination point where we're going to see fully what it is we need to do, and as a group, and how to give ourselves to this group integration process in order to get somewhere new, right? We need to be very realistic with ourselves and to really kind of buckle down now and start pulling it together in a collective situation, right? That's the thing about Capricorn. There's no power. Nothing is created on that level without the collective paradigm. And so this is also going to be applied to this situation with this moon in Sagittarius and Juno in Sagittarius. But again, remember that we are really working very strongly today with this energy that has to do with retribution, and really looking very honestly at the aspects of the former cycle that we know we're letting go of. We know we're letting go of it, but we still have to look at it and still have to be honest with ourselves about what didn't work, and make sure that we're not taking that into the next cycle. Okay, so as we had the moon conjunct the south node, so there is this moment of like, it gives us the momentum of moving forward and reminding us that where we've been, right? And definitely return to the body and return to our innate. This happened later. Let's move back to this chart here so we can easily move through it. There we go. So it was overnight that this happened. So a lot of things coming through the dream state, no doubt. But a return to our innate, right? A direct connection to our past karmic mastery of where we've been and what we are releasing too, because it's not to say that our innate is something that we should push away from or that we shouldn't utilize, but we are going in a new direction, right? We are going into new lands, new opportunities. We are pioneering, and so we can use our innate, of course, and return to the body as the momentum moving forward. But when that innate is based on a collective value system, a collective paradigm, it's that, especially one we are releasing, we have to be very aware that we can be that in some ways can be can not guide us correctly. That's what I'm trying to say. And this is, again, why our personal compass being calibrated is really important, because we can think that we're going in the right direction based on our innate sense of direction and really feeling it in our body. And that's important. But if we are still operating under the same collective paradigm system, then we can, in fact, be influenced by the collective value system rather than our own innate, which is much more about the Cancer archetype. So we move forward from there. And this is where it gets interesting, because it comes into this 12 to 13 degree aspect. This is where sextile Saturn, okay? This is where it trines Chiron. This is where it is conjunct asteroid Juno, all in this degree, this whole degree, and then is in opposition to Black Moon Lilith. Is not on this chart, but is definitely, as you can see right here, sandwiched basically between Mercury and the moon's north node. So all of these things happening at the same time. So where is Saturn? Well, Saturn is retrograde in Aquarius, and we are going back over our instrumentation, right? Is our barometer. Here's another tool that needs to be calibrated properly. So is our barometer calibrated properly? Are we actually able to anticipate coming conditions changing because our instruments are, in fact, calibrated correctly? They're working and functioning properly. Saturn retrograde is making it very much a very palpable, real thing, right? In material form and responsibility too. Saturn is a sense of responsibility. It's very paternal. It is about, it crystallizes things. And so as a retrograde, it is constricting in a lot of ways, and it's making it very obvious to us. We can't help but focus on a retrograde. So, and we're also we're going back over our instrumentation too. We're like, maybe it needs an upgrade. Maybe I need to tune it up. Maybe I need a whole new barometer in general. And so the moon in a sextile to Saturn, again, the investment. And so while our past is brought to light, where we're and remember, the moon is adaptable. It allows us to adapt to the environment. It allows us to connect to our intuition that is outside of time and space and outside of material form, right? The moon is responsible for the shifting of the waters on the planet and life. It's essential to life on this planet. So we are in a position right now where that investment from Saturn to the moon at this moment is allowing us to make sure, maybe somebody else gave us a barometer. Maybe they gave us a bad instrument, right? Maybe we inherited a bad instrument, maybe it's just time for an upgrade. And part of that is going to come from the investment of these karmic actions coming to light, being, presenting a new cycle. Let me start over here. See, I mean, even just, I can't wait till Mercury is like actually full force, because it's just been so, it's just been a struggle to try to actually communicate in real time, which is, again, why I like doing these broadcasts live. I think it's important that we're all being authentic with each other. And I think that's probably the most value I can add, is just like, yeah, I'm along for the ride too. And sometimes these transits really make life more challenging than other times. So, at the same time, the moon is in conjunction with Juno, right? And so we have a very emotional connection to our karmic responsibility, our contractual obligation. Are we actually going to have a balance in our relationships be based on these past actions coming to light, and the unfinished business of yesterday? And then in opposition to Black Moon Lilith, there is a deep part of us that is really getting into our own skill set, right? Performance of our own skill set, performance and expression of our own skill set. And we're still discovering in the first half of Gemini, of course, and Black Moon Lilith is now retrograde. And so it's really deep. And it's grabbing a lot of our attention. And we've been really, I think, hyper-focused the last couple of days with it in its retrograde on this deeper part of ourselves, and this part of ourselves that is defiant and requires self-preservation. That is what Black Moon Lilith allows for. So as we are feeling this retribution and the past karma coming to light, and how it affects the opportunities moving forward, in this opposition to Lilith, where she is really pulling us into this space where I'm just going to focus on doing the best, being the best version of me that I can, the best, being a source of inspiration by really refining my own skill set, to the point where we might not even recognize that this is an act of self-preservation. Because if we just embed ourselves into this position of the moon, it can be really upsetting. And certainly if we are being unconscious about it and not acknowledging it, then we also are setting ourselves up to darken the next cycle, right? It won't be pure. What the transference of this abstraction is going to be based on the past, infused in the new situation. And that's absolutely what we're trying to let go of with the South Node in Sagittarius as well. We also have the moon in a trine to Chiron. So we see that the moon is also in a trine, right? What's that trine? 120-degree angle. It is a very structurally supportive and sound connection. It doesn't require us to act on it at all for it to be harmonious. Well, we know where Chiron is at this 12 to 13 degrees of Aries, this unexploded bomb at a social protest, right? The adolescent frustration of being like, I know what's coming and I want it to happen now, but it's not going to happen now, and this is what causes the frustration. And on top of that, we have Chiron, so this inner child wounding is being activated by this frustration so much. And if we can work on this and take advantage of this trine, right, instead of being unconscious about it and just letting things explode or just letting our frustration get to us, then there's something to be healed here, right? We can see there's so much about being really able to access the past cycles and how they've influenced where we are now, so that we don't take them with us. And this is why the calibration aspect is so important, because it can be very disorienting to go through these processes. And for as much as this trine is harmonious, quote unquote, it doesn't mean that it's a good aspect. There's a lot of action and fire involved here in Sagittarius and Aries. There is, with Chiron involved and the moon involved, there's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of wounding of the inner child. So it can be really, regardless, these two things are going to connect to each other. And we can see as an opportunity for healing and to acknowledge that inner child that's wounded, or we can just feed into the frustration and let it burn us out on the inside. That's always a possibility as well. So this whole complex here of the moon in these connections is really powerful today. So keep that in mind. And this has already happened. So this was very early this morning. So if you found yourself awake at 4:30 in the morning, or even late last night, depending on where you are, this might have come out in the dream state very directly, especially with Black Moon Lilith. I mean, we really access that space a lot more in our trance states, in our sleep states, in our dream states, because it's once all of the physical aspects of reality are put on a shelf while we're sleeping, we can get a lot deeper into who we are. So when we come out of this, you're going to see here, I mean, the sun right from here is going to come into its trine with Jupiter. And we've talked about this a lot already. Jupiter is retrograde. It's expanding within it's an inner expansion now into our own past cycles. Again, and the fact that there are fragments, the signature never goes away. Just like energy is never destroyed or created in this universe. It's only transmuted and changed in its form. And so no matter what has happened, even if it's just a fragment, even if it's just a petrified fossil, it's still there. And Jupiter is expanding on this within us so that we can see it. And this trine to the sun is really going to support our finding out who we are through the testing of our will, right? This is the time in the Cancer archetype where we have to, there's always that potential that we could turn around, run away screaming, right? That we want out, right? We're just like, wait a minute, I don't want to do this anymore, but it's too late. And so this is where the compass really comes into effect, that we are heading towards our own personal north, that we have the spirit of creativity with us, right? That's coming along, but we do have to, we have to give ourselves some sort of warmth and endurance to handle what's happening. And again, these trines, usually a Jupiter-Sun trine is very benefic and beautiful. And I'm not saying that it isn't, but it also is the retrograde Jupiter. So there's a lot of, while we are expanding and expressing outwardly with the sun, Jupiter is expanding within at the same time. And so we are getting a really good look at what has already transpired within our own Akash. And at the same time, it is supporting our expression through this test of our will, this trial of endurance based on the decision that was made at the solstice, right? Which happens every year, but we don't often get this, the trine here is something that's different. So when we move past this point, the moon is then going to quincunx Uranus at this point, and, we're being challenged continuously to revitalize ourselves through the connection to the natural world, right? To live and let live, to let go and to return to the natural rhythm, to return to the mother, return to the soil in order to revitalize ourselves. And of course, Uranus is constantly there's a lot of innovation here, and there is a sense of power that moves through, like the electricity, the lightning bolt. It's also the higher octave of Mercury, so it's the collective third eye. And so there's a real possibility here that we've been given to awaken through the continual disruption of the natural world, and showing it that we can still return to it. It's still here. It's still fixed Earth, right? Nothing has changed about that, even if there are other aspects that are upended because of Uranus. Now, the quincunx is where we need to adjust ourselves, because the moon is in a position where we are trying to emotionally and intuitively connect with some sort of seed knowledge, right? We're getting into our own the custodians of our spiritual knowledge that came way before us, right? We're trying to connect to, the Sphinx and the great, what they represent, right? The Great Pyramid, the Giza Plateau. This is the Sabian symbol, the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx. This is where the moon is. And so this adjustment, again, needs to be made because we're looking for something that has been our past as we're embarking on a journey to create something totally new. And so again, we're gonna want to we're feeling around, embedding ourselves, going deeper into these mysteries to try to find some inspiration or some tether to a collective value system, when in fact Uranus is just like, okay, well, I'm still going to shake up your material world to the point where you're gonna have to learn if you want to awaken, if you want to access this collective third eye type of energy, if you really want to access the power of innovation in the future and that alien futuristic dynamic, it's going to come through a direct connection to the planet, because that is fixed, right? There are certainly things that are there's certainly things there that allow for, that do change, right? There's shifting and there's changing in the physical planet and the soil, right? Of course, that goes without saying, and Uranus is making that really clear. But what it's doing is allowing us to return back to a natural connection to revitalize ourselves, while emotionally and intuitively, right? We want to find our adaptability by trying to connect to some past seed knowledge, right, of spiritual custodians that came before us, that are embedded in these monuments, for instance. So that is something that's really powerful as well today, and because this is why this compass is so important, because we're gonna be, we have a lot of work to do, and we're ready to like get going, right, and to bring some things into form and to work together. And we're gonna see with this full moon what it is we have to let go of, and what it is that we can embrace along this path. But right now is getting us all adjusted and coming to terms with the past, and how if we don't take the time to see it for what it is, it's going to embed itself in our next cycle. And damn, if that is not a big part of where the Mars in Leo is right now. And I'll get to that, because the moon had been in a trine to it just last night at that degree. There's something building under the surface here that is not exactly seen or known yet, but it's absolutely happening within us. And that trine to Mars, which is that, you push for this non-differentiated state and the chaos that absolutely has to come before there's a new system. And sometimes what ends up happening is that in the midst of the chaos, the same old shit comes back in and establishes itself. And we have to be really, really mindful of that, because we could be thinking and considering, especially with all this South Node Sagittarius stuff, we could in fact be allowing this cycle to gestate, right, under the surface. These new elements, we could allow them to gestate and bring them forward. But at the same time, if it's the same dynamic just with a different face, then we haven't really gone anywhere. This is important because it's going to be really easy to get pulled right back into that system. And you can see how that has been playing itself out for the last year plus. But it's really now going to be brought to the surface, I think, because Mars in Leo is just going to act on these things. So, and really push it forward. So there's a lot of adjustment today. And then we have Saturn that is in a direct sextile to asteroid Juno as well, and also is in that trine with Black Moon Lilith, where we are finding our in defiance of everything, we're still going to stay on our grind, right? We're still going to do the best that we can for ourselves, develop our own personal skill set that allows us to interact with the immediate world, right? And this, in fact, is very connected to and structurally sound with Saturn in Aquarius again. And maybe that we have to tune our piano, right? We have to retune our piano. We have to tune our instrument. We have to calibrate our instrument, whatever it is. And Saturn is making this really unavoidable right now. And but it also is part of this process with Black Moon Lilith. That's just like, okay, for the preservation of myself and the planet, right? Something deeper embedded in my psyche is this instrumentation being calibrated properly so that we each individually can be a source of inspiration. And maybe that source of inspiration is the work that we do to make sure our instrumentation is functioning properly. That in itself is not only going to be a process of inspiration for other people, it's also going to allow for the preservation of something so much deeper than our own ego consciousness or even our own emotional state, right? Black Moon Lilith is so deep. And if we do not acknowledge her and work with her consciously, she takes over and just is destructive. And we saw that a couple days ago with that tower being flipped around. So now we're in a moment where she's very much part of this process, and we have to be conscious and aware of that potential within us. And that we can really use Saturn in this moment, right, to make sure that everything is tuned and working properly so that we can, in fact, connect to this place and really be a source of inspiration for not just ourselves, but for the planet, for everybody. So let's move on here. There's just so much. The moon is in opposition to Mercury retrograde or Mercury direct. Keep wanting to say it's retrograde. And we talked about this already, that we are going to really feel this wanting to be insulated and protected by the cultural value system that we have in place right now, that Sagittarius represents in this big picture. And really the opposition to Mercury at this degree is like, well, that's great, but it's time for us to start embarking on new ideas, new territory, new conceptualizations of reality. And this, again, will be very difficult, but Mercury is in Gemini, so it's in its rulership. So this won't be as difficult as we think. It's just that we gather our strength emotionally from our collective belief systems that bind us all. So sometimes it's easier to connect emotionally to abstractions and symbols. And in this moment here, we are really being challenged to let go of those symbols and abstractions that we normally rely on to feel emotionally secure, and allow our mental maturity to start coming online and develop new ideas, and allow for ourselves to really engage with this aha moment that's coming. That's really strong too. And then the moon comes into a quincunx with asteroid Ceres, and she is airing out the consciousness right now. The goddess of nourishment and the grain and agriculture. She's airing out some shit, right? The earth herself is airing some stuff out. And so the quincunx, just like the quincunx to Uranus, 18 degrees of Sagittarius, right? And it's the same idea. We want to be protected, and really the earth is just like, well, that's great, but I'm going to air this bag out right now, and all of your, you're just going to have to deal with it. There's no protection. There's no necessarily little sunbonnets. There's direct, not only is there direct connection here to ourselves, like unmitigated connection to the sun or to source, right? Without a cultural paradigm to overlay, is also, because Ceres is like, yeah, I'm airing this shit out now, like the planet herself, and the nourishment and the sustenance that we gather and is given to us from a natural state, right? From the planet. Part of the Taurus archetype is we accept that natural life and the fixed earth is in fact its own rhythm and pulse. And that for everything that we develop that grows, it also has to be let go of as well. And again, this is going to cause us a need to it. There's so much adjustment that has to happen today if it hasn't happened already. I feel like a lot of the last couple of days have really led us to this point, and now it's just kind of reaching a culminating point. And Chiron is in a trine to asteroid Juno as well, and it's all of the same retribution, facing the past, acknowledging it so we don't take it into the future with us, and being calibrated to our own personal north, whatever that means to us. Because then the Venus opposition to Pluto happens this afternoon, really. There is let's see here. Yeah, this afternoon into the evening, depending on where you are. This is really going to be at the end of the day or the afternoon, like later today, where this becomes exact. So it is a building aspect right now. And then we have the moon by the end of the day in a square to Neptune. And like I said, it's in conjunction with Ras Al Haig, the fixed star that's in the head of the snake charmer, right? Ophiuchus, the snake tamer, the serpent master, right? The serpent energy, the medicine of the serpent being harnessed by Ophiuchus. And this square to Neptune, oh boy. Because this degree, if you remember, actually was the degree of the winter eclipse before the great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius. This was the degree of that eclipse, that total solar eclipse, which is a bluebird, perched on a front gate. For those who remain true to themselves, there is a coming home, right? There is good fortune. There is all of these beautiful, wonderful things awaiting the consciousness that is to the consciousness that has met every effort at integrating into a social environment. For those who remain true to themselves, this is the real challenge of Sagittarius. How do you bring those two things together? Because that's also an alchemical process too. How do you bring the individual to the collective and then form something new, or form actual institutions and structures, which is what Capricorn represents. So by the end of the day as well, with this square here, right, this is going to force us to change. It's not the same as the quincunx, which is coming with the moon and Venus tomorrow. Late tonight, early tomorrow, but it's more, so it's not like a wild card that doesn't fit together. These are absolutely mutable square. They're cross purposes. They are going in different directions. And while we are really trying to integrate ourselves into this social environment and really be a person that can handle the serpent, for instance, and be able to handle it successfully, and the healing and good fortune that results from that. Neptune in Pisces, there's just not much that can really meet the dissolving power of Neptune in Pisces, which has really just, again, taking everything down to its basic constituent parts of this little island with 3 people living on it, and having to be very realistic with ourselves and our potential and our limitations, so that we can actually fulfill our dharma instead of being caught in all of the fantasy, perhaps. And for as much as we want to, like I said, adapt to our environment through this ability to integrate our true selves into the collective, and really, like I said, handle the serpent, right? Really be the head of and use the higher mind, right? That's a big part of it, is using our power of understanding to bring about this alchemy. As much as we want using this to adapt to reality, and we're feeling it. The cross purposes, again, it's not an easy, this is nothing about this is easy. And it's very much, can really, how do I put this? It can really put you, Sagittarius has got all of the good ideas, right? It's endlessly optimistic. There's no barrier to what we can create with Sagittarius, right? There's no barrier to what is possible when we really put together these pure elements and perform this alchemy, whatever it is. And so it's always got the big ideas, the big picture, right? But the thing is that it's really no match for Neptune, that is just like, well, the karma of these cycles has already made itself apparent, and there's no getting around that, right? And depending on who you are and what your trajectory and your intention is, this can be very humbling if we see it that way, and certainly there is a change that can happen. We're forced to change with a square, or it can just it can really, if we don't, it can really just throw us off, right? Because it's a mutable square, right? So it can shift and change and be malleable very easily. But it also because of that, it can really throw us off. It's like, it's like being, it's like being out in, all I can think of is like being out in space, which is very similar to being in the ocean in some ways in terms of the change in our gravitational pull and the weight we have so we can move more easily. It just feels like if you're out in space and something like shoots you off, you know what I mean? If you come in contact with a force, it's going to just shoot you off into away, right? Isn't that what happened in the movie Gravity? Actually, I haven't actually seen it, but I think that's what happened. This is what it feels like to me. And so it can be very humbling and really get us on track. Or we can just be completely delusional. And then when this square happens, it's just like, I thought I was in control. I thought I actually was able to handle all of this. And it turns out that it's not really, I need to be realistic. And that's where the full moon's going to come in. And this is where this mental maturity with Mercury stationing direct now is so important, because otherwise we're just living in a fantasy, or in fact, we're thinking that we're able to do more than we actually can, and not being realistic about our actual mission here, because we get caught up in all of the big ideas. And that's really what Sagittarius represents. And those big ideas have formed our society in the past. And now we're moving in a direction where it's time to start engaging with new ideas that will eventually move towards a new set of values that we can then create a new society. But we're far off from that right now. We got a while to go. And so we do have to be realistic with ourselves. So that was a lot, but I warned you yesterday that it would be. So let's have a look here at the reading, because we're gonna see. Oh my gosh, sometimes I just don't even. Okay, guys. Let's pull this down here. I'm going to check in with the stream really quick and just make sure that, okay, cool. Everything is good to go. I kind of get into my zone here and forget that anything else exists, which I guess is a good thing. So our causal factor here, have we been in our feels a little bit too much? Have we? Have we been indulging our fantasies, indulging our false illusions, just drowning in the swamp, essentially? Venus and Scorpio. Remember, Venus is her rulership is Taurus. So Scorpio is her detriment. She is not wanting to be in this space. And this is very much like the Pleiadians being in Scorpio land. It is dripping with all of the intoxicating but false reality and the slime of stagnation. So the waters of delusion, the cloud of intoxication, escaping reality, wishful thinking. Didn't this just sound like what I just talked about? It's a warning, and it's upright. So it's active. We're not resisting it. So there is a possibility to learn something here. And a 7, right? This is a quincunx energy. This is the wild card energy, the fall from grace, right? That allows for the divine intervention. And we're going to see there's another 7 in here as well, with the journey on top, the 7 of roses. So very similar energies here. The roses and the cups being that spiritual, emotional, feeling-based element. So the warning is to recognize the delusions, disguises, and facing up to the facts about things, and promises unfulfilled. Ooh, God. Selfish dissipation. And the best part about this is it's very sobering, right? Today is a very sobering type of day, okay? And this causal factor is what is the impetus, as far as I am concerned with this reading, to our present moment, which is our aha moment, right? The Ace of Swords, the unstructured matter of the thinking and the mind, right? So now Mercury is direct in Gemini. It is now this aha moment, the light bulb, right? The shining of our unmitigated, undifferentiated mental state. It's a first idea, right? And clearness, right? It hasn't been differentiated yet. It is that laser focus. It's not even a focus. It's just the light bulb going off. And so we've been steeped in all of these delusions and this wishful thinking and really drowning in, the depth of our feeling. And that has been very clear over the last couple of days. I've been experiencing it. I know other people experiencing it. I know people are reporting to me that they're having those same experiences. It's no joke. And this time was really, really powerful, because of that grand water trine with Venus and Neptune as well. So here's our aha moment. And this is really at the heart of the matter. So it's the heart, or the axis point in our own heart, which is really where we connect our energetic polarity with it's how we actually manifest, is through our heart space. And when it's unbalanced, I mean, you can see how that impacts what is manifested or what we engage with. So this is the axis point of our own energetic polarity and what is manifested in a third dimensional kind of chronological order here. So our causal factor with this, the debauch, right? The waters of delusion, escapism, right? Which is much more of a Pisces type of thing, but this is more about the delusions and staying caught in the fantasy, and because Venus doesn't want to go into the depths. And so when she does everything that she can to mitigate that, to not have to see it for what it is, and really just get caught in a loop of all of these potentials. But this is leading to us to just be like a wake up, right? Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. And Mercury going direct is definitely part of this wake up. So the Queen of Keys is reversed here. This is our operating in the background, right? Our background program, a subconscious program. Now, this came out yesterday with the Queen of Discs upright, but there is a bit here. This is our Venus. It's still our Venus in Cancer, right, in our opposition to Pluto right now. Because the fact that she is reversed like this, it's not only time to consider our aspirations and all that it brings us, right? Because it is about our material reality with the Queen of Keys, or Venus in Cancer in some ways. But the fact that it is the background operating program here under the surface, it's influencing what we see and what we manifest and what we pay attention to. And as we see where energy flows, where the attention goes, there is a sense here that we are it feels like we're losing something. But as we're going to see with the guidance here, it's less about when you see things as a cycle and you realize that harvest is not losing something, but in fact gaining something and then preparing for the next cycle. We realize that we are not actually losing something. And this opposition with Venus and Pluto is going to feel like this. And we as individuals and collectively are kind of, we're kind of sick of sitting in this feeling with the Venus, the Seven of Cups and all of the, we want to be awake. We want to be mentally awake and functioning as the magician in our lives, right? And this, Mercury is the magician. And sometimes you just have to sit in your own filthy feelings for a while so that you just get so sick of them that you do wake up and you're like, I don't have to feel this way. And that's really what we're coming to. But at the base here, there does seem like that we may feel like we're losing something. We may feel like our stability is being compromised. Our protection and safety is being compromised, especially when it comes to our relationships and the integrity of our relationships, the emotional cohesion of our relationships. But if we can see this as part of a harvest process rather than losing anything and creating a space for it to happen, this is going to work in our favor, because what we're now paying attention to is, so here's the Seven of Roses. We have the Seven of Cups, and now we have the Seven of Roses, the journey, but it's reversed, right? And a lot of times in readings for actual clients, when this comes out, it's usually a literal journey, like moving or transplanting. But in this case, it is a delayed journey. There's an emotional journey here that does feel delayed or canceled, right? We're trying to go somewhere. We're trying to get on the ship and go, right? And there's something that feels, what we're seeing and engaging with and where our attention is going is that we're not moving, which can be really frustrating when we have this aha moment. We're like, okay, let's go. But really the energetic polarity here is keeping us. If we see it as a detriment, then yeah, we're going to feel stagnant and we are not going to be able to go. We're going to feel stagnant. That's what we're going to see is stagnation. And eventually depending on how we look at it, this Prince of Swords that is ultimately the outcome to expect here, we're either going to have this incredible idealism, intellectual agility, mastery of our words, throwing ourselves into our research and remember that Black Moon Lilith, right? Remember, the source of inspiration by really putting our best foot forward. And this is where Mercury is still, Rigel, the best foot forward in the constellation of Orion, full of plans and ideas, okay? Now, this is a good thing. Now, even though it seems like it could be really all over the place, because that is the dark side here of this prince, but it's the seemingly stagnant energy with this aha moment at the heart of it that is really going to lead us to start to activate with this Mercury direct, okay? And it depends on how we interact with all of this energy. If it's going to be a detriment and we're going to be confused and all over the place, or if we're really going to use our mental agility and throw ourselves into the learning and knowledge that Gemini represents. So this being reversed, yeah, there's a delay. We want to get somewhere. We want to get somewhere emotionally. We want to get somewhere in our feeling. And this is saying we need to attend to what's right in front of us and not give in to the temptation to be frustrated. There's that Chiron and Aries again. It's really tempting to get frustrated and be like, I'm not getting there fast enough, and realize that it's all in the cycle. Everything is in its right place. And the more that we stabilize ourselves in who we are, in our own power, our compass is calibrated, we will be able to see the path forward when it's time to do so. There are things that need to be moved out of the way and rectified before this can happen. And this frustration is really palpable. I know I use that word a lot, but boy, it is a word that I've learned being a massage therapist for decades, right? You palpate, you can feel it physically. And these experiences are very palpable. I can palpate them with my own intuitive feels, and so can you, right? So attend to what's right in front of you, literally, right? You don't have all your shit together. Let's just be real here. And I'm not saying, this is not a judgment. I'm right here, right? We don't have it all together yet. We still got to pack our stuff and get it into the tender boat, and maybe the ship's, running behind. There could be all kinds of things. So direct your attention to what's right in front of you instead of trying to get somewhere that you're eventually going to get to, right? But you can't get to it yet until it's time, and you have to there's so much that has to happen, right? We talked about this the last 2 days, especially yesterday, up in the air. You have to trust this process, right? It's hard. It's hard when, especially strong Sag people are really feeling it right now. All the grand ideas and, all of the big ideas and the truth and the big picture, and I can do anything, right? It's all out in front of me. Once we get to Capricorn full moon, we're going to see very clearly, okay, we actually have to ground down into reality here in order to get where we're going on this journey. Now, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Remember Fire Marshal Bill? Anyway, sorry. It's just been coming up a lot. If you remember Jim Carrey playing Fire Marshal Bill forever ago in Living Color. It's just funny. Anyway, it just reminds me anytime I say that, is the degree for the moon at the full moon, the Sabian symbol is like a group of people outfitting a canoe to go somewhere, right? So, be assured here that this aspect of a journey along the water and a group cohesion in order to do that is very much part of what we're dealing with, but it's just, we're not quite there yet. The full moon's going to show us what else we need to deal with before we can move forward, because what to expect here is in fact this Prince of Swords, and we have to be very mindful of this energy because it's young, it's immature, and our own ego can be pulling us forward if we are not aware of it. And either way you look at it, this is where it's going, right? We're going to be in a very highly intellectual state, and each of us going to be pulled by this. But if we want to make sure that it's our own, that it's something new, and it's something that is not burdened with the karma of these past cycles that need to be released, then we have to follow some of this advice here, right? And so let's get right into this. All right. four forces, autumn. So I actually showed it reversed because it's important that you see this picture of the harvest, right? We just talked about this. The harvest is the four forces here, reversed, right? That it is a time of harvest to gather up the results of our actions, right? And the panda, as we've talked about before, is creating that sacred space. So we know that in some ways we're going to feel like there is a loss, and it's going to be very cathartic. And this is what's running in the background here under the surface, and is influencing where all of our attention actually goes. So if we want to utilize this energy to the best of our conscious ability here, we want to make sure we're creating that space within us, a sacred space for a harvest, right? For the catharsis that Venus in Cancer is going to represent in its tension with Pluto in Capricorn, okay? Rather than let it take us down, right? And there's still a strong potential of that with this Seven of Cups, Seven of Roses, getting caught up in the fantasy and the illusion and the frustration of not, getting anywhere. And the reason is because we have to attend to what's right in front of us, but we need to create a space, a sacred space. Whatever that means. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to physically create one. You have to just in yourself, right? And create a space in which the harvest can happen in a karmic way. That way we can face this cathartic moment here, this Queen of Keys, without feeling like we're losing anything, but letting it go, right? As a normal and natural part of this process. Now, when we get to where our attention is going, just keep in mind, complaining is a habit. Oh my gosh, it is such a habit. And once you start paying attention to yourself, and especially other people too, and you're just like, God damn, that's all you do is complain. And like, we all do it, you know what I mean? And don't judge yourself. Just get back up on your bike and keep going, right? But when you stop complaining and you focus your attention on your blessings, right? The gratitude practice, then your attention is going to go towards that instead of focusing on what's not happening, where you're not going, not getting anywhere. So stop focusing on that. Now, something else that's really interesting about this is the Eight of Keys is reversed. And so this is the Master Artisan, right? This is the culmination point of the keys suit in this deck. And so it's the idea that you've reached this moment of mastery and now you're teaching, right? You're passing it on. Well, when it's reversed, it is a phase of what? Receiving rather than sharing. The harvest, right? Remember that it's time now to receive, we're going to receive so much insight and maybe some difficult conversations, emotions, but we are receiving the fruits of all of our labors so far. And pay attention to that, right? This is where your energy can go, and your attention can go, so that you can really get yourself out of the swamp, essentially, right? This Venus in Scorpio. You want to pull yourself out of this. And it's when you stop focusing on trying to output your mastery so much. And this is really hard for people who do exactly this type of work that I'm doing. And lots of people, right? It doesn't, you don't have to be doing any kind of spiritual or esoteric work. You can be doing any kind of work that is, in fact, a sharing of your skill set. But there is, I know, because I'm feeling it too, there's a lot of focus here, and like, I'm not getting where I want to go, and getting frustrated and getting caught in that. And that's a perpetual cycle, right? That loop. So just know that you receive, right? Allow the harvest to be what it is, and focus your attention on your blessings, right? And what's right in front of you. And then when we do that, we can take full advantage of this Prince of Swords energy that can really take us into some incredible areas, plans and ideas, right? Like really researching them, really putting our thoughts and our best foot forward, right? There is Mercury direct at Rigel, putting that foot forward, the best foot forward, right? That's where Rigel is. It's in the foot of Orion the warrior. So if we want to utilize that energy and put our best foot forward and really start moving towards these new ideas and plans and be idealistic in a good way, we want to allow this process of harvesting, of retribution, and that's a scary word, so don't get too caught up in what it means. we just want to accept it for a natural part of the cycle. Do you want the cycle to be pure? Do you want pure elements to be part of your alchemical process in the end? Yes, you do. So you got to get out of your fantasy and your delusions about reality here, even if they are it's painful to go into Scorpio. This is why Venus wraps herself in all of these intoxication or delusions or fantasies or unfulfilled promises, because it's her way of coping. Okay. And so we don't want to stay there. Right. And we know that, and we want to move forward, but we have to let this process unfold naturally. And believe me, the stars, the stars and the, where are you? Oh, I'm right here. The stars, the transits, the planets, the whole cosmic cycle, the clock of the universe is going to provide many opportunities to practice this today. So I'm going to leave it at that. That was a really full transmission. We will be back tomorrow for the full moon transmission. It's going to be a little dodgy. I'm hoping that I can get the transmission out before the power company comes and shuts my power down for the whole day. So it makes it kind of hard to work when there's no power. So I'm hoping to get the transmission out before that all happens at our normal time. So keep a lookout for that. If you are interested in a reading or energetic support through Reiki or shamanic energy work, you can book through catalystenergies.net. It's in the description box below, and social media, description box below, Subscribestar, it's all linked below. So everything you need is going to be accessible through the description box. So you guys have a great day. Take very good care of yourselves. Allow the harvest to happen, right? Put some energy into it maybe. When you find opportunities to do so, deal with what's right in front of you. You know, it's easy with the moon and Sag to get into this big picture area, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't mean to be disparaging. Believe me, I have too much Sag in my chart to be self-hating like that. So, but it's important to understand how this can impact our ability to stay grounded in our own sense of who we are and our own power when we are trying to adapt to reality through these collective paradigms and these big picture aspects. And so deal with what's right in front of you. Be focused on your gratitude and your blessings, right? Allow yourself to receive instead of constantly thinking you got to take care of everything, right? There's that Chiron victim savior mentality. There's so much wrapped up in what's going on right now. And a big part of what we need to let go of is that dynamic of being a victim or a wounded healer or having the savior complex, right? That's over, right? That is definitely over, and we're moving past that. So I think I'll leave it at there. Thank you guys so much. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. I love you. And I'll see you tomorrow for the full moon transmission. Have a great day. Bye.